Is Western aid starting to turn the tide in Ukraine? But do we still have a long way to go? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is, I thought, an interesting story and an interesting kind of anecdote. And this was yesterday that indicated that for the first time in months, you're seeing Russian forces driven back. Now, locally, let's not overstate what this is, but in two spots across the front line, we're seeing Russian forces actually withdraw or get pushed back. One is here in the Srebreninki forest, and you can see that they've been pushed back here. Now, this is, we've talked about the fact that I don't put a lot of stock in this whole, basically the entire front line north of the Donets River. It's very dense. It's very forested, it's very unforgiving terrain, and it seems to be relatively loosely manned. So changes in the front line tend to be somewhat ephemeral, right? But what this does indicate is that Ukrainian forces may have pivoted their strategic outlook, and that they're beginning to say, okay, where can we push the Russians backwards? And as you can see, right, this isn't listed as liberated, it's listed as contested, but it's remained contested for at least 2 days. So it's a sign, again, that there's some potentially shifts happening in the battlefield. Now let's see if we can, God help me, find the other spot. Near Klitschivka is another spot where we've seen a Russian withdrawal. You can see this is actually fairly significant, right? You can see from the village itself, basically, or there's virtually nothing left of this village, but you can see Russian forces have been forced out of Klitschivka. This is even more significant because this is turf that the Ukrainians kind of were yielding to the Russians. And this is a pretty decisive counterattack that seems to have held at least for 2 or 3 days. And as we've talked about, Ukrainians control a lot of the high ground north west of Klitschivka, and so by controlling this high ground, they're able to inflict a fair amount of punishment on whoever is occupying this lower level. So it makes sense then that this contested area or this Russian occupied area has been subject to a lot of Ukrainian fire, and likely this withdrawal of Russian forces was probably a little bit less ground house-to-house combat and a little more about attrition and position. So these two signs. Now we're going to be clear here about the reality that at the same time, right? Let's get this here. Right, the same day, you saw Russian advances near Kalinivka, Novoprokopsk, Yasnobrodivka. And so the momentum, so to speak, is still firmly in Russian hands, right? Now, as we've talked about, some of this is part of the Ukrainian strategy, right, where they're yielding terrain to the Russians. Again, low terrain whose tactical and strategic and operational value is low, like this kind of peninsula in the middle of nowhere, right? But some areas, Russia is in fact advancing. Again, Novoprokopsk is well, you can see these advances here. This has some tactical significance, but this windbreak doesn't really facilitate anything. So Russia is continuing to have the momentum firmly in their favor, but the fact that we're seeing Ukrainian commanders make decisions to push back against the Russians is itself, I think, a really positive sign. Now, if you're looking for a positive sign to pick up some strike gum to get you the energy you need, this is your sign, right? We have a Father's Day sale, free shipping on all orders over $40. So if you go to strikegum.com, you can pick up the zero sugar energy drink alternative for again, and get that free shipping. You can order 2 of the 5-packs or the tray, or do some kind of mix and match with the 5-pack and individual packs. As long as it's over $40, free shipping. So check it out, strikegum.com. And you can get it on Amazon, but we don't have the Father's Day sale there because, well, it's Amazon. So check us out. Link is in the description. Okay. So here's what I thought was interesting. When you look at the Ukrainian deputy defense minister has reported that Western military assistance has begun to arrive in Ukraine. I think it's been arriving for some time. We've talked about the fact that critical supplies that there's a trade-off in military logistics. You can get a little bit fast or a lot very slowly, right? And so it seems like the U.S. did both. They got a quick hit package, getting critical artillery units resupplied, getting critical air defense units resupplied very quickly. But now the tidal wave has been starting to push out, and that's what he's talking about, right? The Ukrainian forces, again, published June 15th, that limited aid from April is already reducing Ukraine's artillery shortages, right? And that Russian forces' artillery advantage has decreased from 7-1 to just 5-1. It was 10-1, by the way, prior in February. So cutting the Russian artillery advantage in half, and we know that Western shells are of a much greater quality, and that likely Western artillery pieces are also superior in a lot of ways, right? F-16 fighter jets and other Western Predator air defenses will hopefully allow Ukraine to secure its airspace much better. Several frontline commanders and servicemen have confirmed that Russia is receiving some limited Western-provided shells, but the shells have not arrived at the scale the Ukrainian forces need to fully thwart Russian attacks. Right? There's also a round of ammunition coming from the Czech artillery initiative. And so this is really, I think, a sign, as we talked about, that this is the exact reality that we just looked at on the battlefield, which is that some units in limited capacities have limited ability to take the fight to the Russians. By and large, the fight is still firmly in Russian hands and will be for another several weeks to months, according to that statement. But I think what you may see is a gradual reduction in where Russia can advance, and then you may start to see limited Ukrainian counterattacks, hopefully. But it's a good sign in any case, right? And a sign that, again, the calls you guys made, writing to your congressman, that stuff made a difference and is making a difference. So thanks so much to the Colonel tier members of Combat Vet News, the Lieutenant tier members. Could not do this without all you guys. Appreciate you all so much. And I will see you guys in the next one. Please be patient with the site while it's being redone. Thanks. See ya.